Let's start with those bathroom laws.
Sure.
You have North Carolina saying it's going to sue the U.S. government. Department of Justice saying it's going to sue North Carolina. You've said that Texas is going to fight this. How?
Sure.
A similar lawsuit?
Well, we're going to fight it the same way that I had been fighting against the Obama administration. I think I hold a record for suing the Obama administration. I sued 31 times in my capacity as the Attorney General before I became governor. I talk about this issue in my new book, Broken But Unbowed. It's the issue about how the Constitution and the federal government has been turned upside down. Here's what happened. Congress has taken several opportunities to weigh in on the transgender bathroom issue, whether or not it should be a part of Title IX, whether or not it should be part of the Civil Rights Act, and each time Congress voted against it. The Obama administration said, Congress, you had a chance to do your job. You didn't do it. We're going to do it. That strips the Constitution of what it was intended to do. It's the lawmakers, Congress, who have the authority under the Constitution to make the law, not the president. And what the president is doing now is making law, not executing it.
So is your opposition to this about the legal overreach, or is it about the issue itself? Are you opposed to transgender people selecting which bathroom they use, or is it about the way the government's gone about doing this?
Well, actually, it's both. But to be clear, the real issue here, and the bigger issue that is wrecking America, is the way the Obama administration is rewriting the Constitution by rewriting the law, which it does not have the power to do.
You refer to President Obama as a king in this book. You take issue with his tactics. As you mentioned, you've sued the federal government many times before. We had a decision from the Supreme Court today related to Obamacare. I know you were at the front of suing the federal government over the Affordable Care Act to begin with. What's your reaction to how that decision came down today? In effect saying, we're kicking this back down to the lower courts to sort this out.
First, so you'll know, my reference to Obama as a king comes from his lips himself. When he said 20 times he would be acting as a king, as an emperor, that he had no authority to rewrite the immigration laws. And then he rewrote the immigration laws. And so I'm using his own self-descriptor when it comes to rewriting the laws, which is what he's been doing. As it concerns today's decision, obviously it's a good decision for the Little Sisters of the Poor. It's ludicrous to expect the Little Sisters of the Poor to provide abortion-related drugs for their employees. That is not what the law was intended to do, nor should Americans be coerced into providing products that violate their religious beliefs.
Day in and day out, we talk about the price of oil. We've seen very low prices of oil. Your state is one that relies heavily on petrochemicals, on oil. What effect has that had on the state?
Well, you might sense some buoyancy on my part today, being that oil is up $1.50. Exactly, is doing a great thing about it. It's gone up $21 since the low just a couple of months ago, which shows that everyone who thinks they can predict the price of oil always turn out to be completely wrong. Second, every decade of my lifetime, oil has had a big downturn, and then it's gone back up. It is a pure commodity based upon the forces of demand and supply. On Bloomberg today, there have been various stories by various financial organizations talking about how the forces of demand and supply are now much more equal than they had been earlier in the year, and that should lend support to the price of oil. That will be nothing but good for the Texas budget.
Just returning to these so-called bathroom laws for a second here. Texas has aggressively gone after technology companies, getting them to relocate to Texas, to start up in Texas. In North Carolina, you've seen some blowback. A lot of technology executives saying they don't want to do business in a state that has those kinds of laws there. When you look at the Texas economy overall, is that something you're worried about, upsetting executives of those companies?
No, and there's a reason why, and that is this issue actually played out in Houston, Texas last November, when Houston went through the same thing that Charlotte went through, and Houstonians voted against the type of ordinance that Charlotte was trying to impose. And in the aftermath of that vote, there have been 48 new businesses that moved into Houston, none leaving it as a result of that. In the aftermath of that vote, we had the NCAA National Championship game in Houston, Texas. Next year, we will have the Super Bowl in Houston, Texas. Despite that fact, Houston and Texas have continued to add new jobs. And so there's been absolutely no economic backlash because of it whatsoever.
You've got this new book out tomorrow. There will be people who will look at you, look at that, and say, you're going on the road, you're trying to make yourself into a larger national political figure. Do you aspire to national office?
If this book was connected to some type of national office, it would not be coming out now before this upcoming presidential election. It's coming out now because of an important issue, what we were talking about earlier, and that is the way the Constitution has been broken and been rewritten by all three branches of government. The fact is, the title of the book is Broken But Unbowed. It's how I was broken, how an accident left me in a wheelchair, but I remain unbowed and overcame it. But it's also how the federal government is broken, how all three branches of government are broken because they've strayed from their constitutional design. And I write about a pathway to fix the way that America has a broken Constitution.
Hearing you talk about that, I hear echoes of what another Texan, Senator Ted Cruz, said on the campaign trail. You supported him when he was running for president. You've now thrown your support behind the presumptive nominee. How difficult is it to go from one to the other? You look at these two figures at face, they seem like very different ideologically, politically.
Well, it's a challenge philosophically, but it's a challenge for me deeper than that because I'm close friends with Ted Cruz. When I was the Attorney General of Texas, Ted Cruz was my Solicitor General. He's a man that I worked with for more than half a decade, day in, day out. So I know him personally. It wasn't some presidential candidate out there. This was my friend who was out there campaigning. And so in a way, it's a personal loss, and it's a grieving loss that you have to get over. It takes some while to do that. But here's the deal that will galvanize both myself as well as my party. And that is, we know that Hillary Clinton is nothing more than an extension of the Obama agenda. We view that as to be very challenging concerning things like ISIS, like immigration, like the heavy hand of regulation that is crushing job growth in this country. And so that's a very easy choice to make.
Donald Trump is reaching out to conservatives, trying to make the case that he's somebody that they could support, get along with. Have you talked to him?
The last time I talked to him is when I was running for governor. So I haven't talked to him during the presidential campaign. But I want to point this out because this is genius, I think, by Donald Trump. He's talking about coming out with a list, 10 potential nominees to the United States Supreme Court. That list is so important. This is something all presidential candidates should do. That way, people get to see in advance who you would choose from to appoint to the United States Supreme Court, which is a critically important issue at this particular time.
What do you think is the most important issue for Texans in this election? When they're thinking about who they're going to vote for, what do you think the most important issue to them is?
Number one, securing the border. Number two, protecting Texas and the U.S. from ISIS. Number three is jobs. Number four is the United States Supreme Court.